realize we were that popular tonight.
Good afternoon. We'll call this meeting February the 21st, 2023, of the Macon County Board of Commissioners to order. It is good to see you. I don't know what's cooking tonight, but something is, I can tell. Good to have y'all here. This is reconvening a meeting we canceled a week ago, Valentine's Day. So, announcements?
Chairman, I've got some announcements.
All right.
I spoke with the high school today, and I just want to reach out and kind of highlight some of our athletes. We had Boston Stringer, pole vaulting state champion. We had a women's 4x200 state championship team. We had a 2023 3A men's state championship team. The 2023 3A women's runner-up state championship team. We had two female wrestlers that were first ever regional title winners. And we also had a 2023 3A state championship cheerleading team. So I just thought those were all worthy, and they just occurred in the last week or two. And not poking at the high school, but it's impressive to see this without a track.
That's
So,
right.
so this is really special and something I take pride in.
Anybody else? I have one announcement. The hot button issue right now is the property reevaluation. And at every meeting, I'm going to ask our county managers to give us a 30-second synopsis of what's going on and what stage we're in on this reval. Derek?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As many of you, or as each of you have received your notices, just a reminder, that is the change in value. That is not, again, that we are, as we go through the budget process, we will determine the tax rate. So the current 40-cent tax rate is not the tax rate that it will be at the budget. We had a very sharp increase in the value. I think it was about a 58% overall is what we saw the tax base in Macon County equate to. And right now, as there are many appeals coming in, I think we had 125 come in today. It is still too early until we see what comes out of this appeals process to see what that revenue neutral rate is going to be, just because there's such, that appeals, how many appeals are submitted will impact that rate at the end of the day. So right now, until about the end of March, I think the appeals close on March 13th. I think we have a board meeting the following March the 14th. And what impeccable timing you have, Abby. Our tax administrator just walked in. No, so anyway, on March 14th, once we've been able to see how many appeals came in, we'll then start being able to put the picture together of what that revenue neutral rate, a good range that could look like. So just to give you some comparison, in '07, that revaluation yielded about a 70% increase in tax base in Macon County. So this one we know is a 58% increase thereabouts. That's what we saw the tax base increase. So in 2006, the year before the revaluation, the tax rate was 37 cents. Remember, 07, 70% increase in tax base. So what happened to the tax rate in 07? It went down to 24.5 cents. So that just goes to show you, and I know we've talked about here in multiple meetings, the effect of that revenue neutral tax rate. It serves as an equalizer, if you will. And it gives us, by statute, we have to list in the budget that is presented the revenue neutral tax rate, which is the amount, the tax rate that is needed to produce the amount of revenue equal to the last fiscal year had a revaluation not occurred. So by definition alone, you can see how that revenue neutral tax rate acts as the equalizer. And I think the example we have in 2007 here, there's no better example of when you see a sharp increase in the tax base like that, how the rate came down, because going back to, it has to produce the same amount of revenue equal to the last fiscal year had that revaluation not occurred. So, with that being said, Abby's here. I'm happy to answer any questions. Abby can answer all of them though, because she knows tons more about it than I do. Yes,
I instantly got the idea from what you said, that if we are concerned about our evaluation, we should submit a revaluation protest.
Absolutely. We want to make sure that every parcel, every house, every piece of land is valued accordingly.
and Abby, can you
Equal
tell
and fair.
them, oh, I'm sorry, can you tell them a little, like, the process for the appeal? Just to-
Sure. And I don't have an appeal form with me, but you'll keep the top of the appeal form. You're gonna fill out each question, and if any of the boxes do not apply, you don't have a recent appraisal, you haven't had a recent sale, there's, 2 more. Just put in the comment section why you're appealing. And we'll take that into consideration. Make sure you put a phone number and email so that we can contact you. And then we're going to take those appeals until March 13th. I am not gonna use March 13th, that's the deadline, you get 30 days by state statute. But, you know, we don't want you to come, you're gonna have another appeal chance. After the 13th, we're gonna keep working these, and then we're gonna send all the informals out at one time. And then after that, you're gonna have the chance to appeal to the Board of Equalization and Review. We do not know those dates yet, because they can't meet until April. We're not even gonna meet with the board until the first week of March to set those dates. They're gonna be published in the paper 3 times. They're gonna be in the Highlands paper and in the Franklin paper. So those dates to deadline to appeal to the board are going to be set in that paper, and we don't even know those yet. This is just the first round of appeals that comes to our office to make sure that we have all of our data correct, and we can take a second look at them, because as I said before, we do a mass appraisal. We do not individually look at everybody's house. We wanna make sure that we have your age, your grade, any type of adjustment that needs to be made. Some people have land that cannot be used due to being in a flood area. We wanna make sure that we've accounted for that. Your house may be 40 years old, and we're saying it's up to a 2015 standard, and you haven't done anything to it, so we need to adjust that. You may have decks that we don't have that we need to put on, but you may have decks that we have that you don't have anymore. So we just wanna make sure that we can look at all of them. There's 44,131 parcels. That's a lot of parcels for 3 appraisers. So we're gonna make sure that we look at every one of them. So I do encourage everybody to fill that out and fill it in. You can look for comps on our website, on our GIS. You go to the maconNC.org website. There's an icon on the left-hand side. One says tax, one says GIS. On the GIS side, you can click that, go to our GIS portal. It'll ask you for either your name, your parcel number, your address. You can put that in. You'll click on your parcel on the map. It'll bring all your data up. On the bottom, below all that data, there's a search. It's called an advanced search. You can go to that search. You can look for sales between January 1st of 22 to December. That's how you can sort it by your neighborhood. You can sort it by your township. So if you want everything in the Franklin Township, you put Franklin in and put sale dates, and that will bring everything up between there. It will not, at this time, it'll give everything, even if it's a 0 sale, so it's not a good sale, if there's a 0 on it. So you'll just have to filter through those. If you need any help, please call our office, we can all help you. But comparables are gonna be your biggest help unless we have something to do, like wrong with your parcel, or your house, or your land.
Thank you, Abby.
Any questions?
And she didn't know that she was gonna stand and have to do that, so forgive us for that, but you showed up.
No, I don't.
And did a
I'm
great
just
job.
sorry I was late.
Yeah, and.
But I have reasons for that. And I'll just give you a quick overview. We are putting in the appeals right now. You can email them, you can do a letter. We do not take phone, appeals. Right now, we have approximately 150 appeals. We still have some we have to put in. And the value that's being the value that's being appealed is around 71 million. The opinion that everybody, because we asked for you to put an opinion in of what you think your property is worth, is 57 million. So that's your difference.
14 million up there. Yeah.
That's 14 million. So that's where we stand right now, but we still have a lot of days to go through. I have yet, and I was trying to return calls, I still have 34 calls to call back. So we're trying to get to everybody as soon as we can. We're calling back, please leave a message. We will call you back, it might be, it says on our letter, 72 hours, but at this point, we're having a lot of walk-ins, a lot of calls, a lot of letters to put in, and we're trying to get them as processed as quickly as possible. So,
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you, Abby.
Thank you.
And
You're
for
welcome.
those of you who get bored and leave early, we will be appointing 5 members.
yes,
We
there's
will be
5.
appointing it's called the Board of Equalization and Review. 5 seats of local people, and we'll be appointing that board tonight. So if you go all the way to the board appeal, that's the people you'll be appealing to. And that's public information who those members are.
Yes, we have Dwight Vinson, he has been on the board as long as I've been doing this for like the last 6 years. Gary Drake, he's an appraiser from Highlands. Christine Flaggs is a real estate agent from Nantahala. Donald Holland, who's a local builder and real estate agent. And Richard Leitner, our previous tax administrator.
Abby, how many people are asking that their valuations be raised?
Actually, a lot. We have, today I had 5. And I also talked to a realtor in Highlands. There was gonna be an article in the paper in Highlands, about the revenue neutral rate. And she wants that to be known to everybody, that just because your value's doubled, doesn't mean that your taxes are gonna be doubled. They're gonna do a revenue neutral, so they're doing an article in the paper in Highlands on that.
Good deal. Anything else? Thank you, Abby.
You're welcome.
All right, stand for a moment. West Commissioner Shields will lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Gary. We have no public hearings tonight. Sheriff, we have public comments? Anyone else want to sign up for the public comment period?
No, not yet.
Of 11. And just a brief recap of our guidelines for public comment. Generally, we try to limit to about 35 minutes total. We got 11 people. My Iowa math says that's 33 minutes. So try to respect those time constraints. The board may choose to interact with the commentators. And I can just about assure you that this bunch here ain't gonna keep their mouth shut. So first one will be Dylan Castle. Welcome, Dylan.
Appreciate the opportunity. I would like to speak concerning the library's decisions regarding sexually based material, including sexually explicit material that is illegal, that is available to minors. I want to clarify my position, a position I should note that is also held by a large number of citizens, but is often misrepresented by the media, including local sources. This is not about LGBT, etc. material. This is not about the LGBT, etc. community. This is about the immoral and illegal decision to provide sexually themed and illicit material to minors. Let me give a very specific example. In the book Gender Queer, which is in our library, there's a cartoon rendering of an underage boy performing oral sex on another underage boy. This is the type of immoral and illegal sexually explicit material I and many others are referring to. I would be just as opposed if it were an underage girl and boy performing oral sex, and I would be just as opposed if it were two adults performing oral sex. This is because this type of sexual and sexually explicit material is immoral and illegal regardless of how it is portrayed. As long as it's being made available to children, it is immoral and illegal. Furthermore, there have been two specific words that I have chosen to describe this material: immoral and illegal. The first should be rather obvious: immoral. This is also the most important of the two. Allowing the innocence of children, especially concerning the topic of sex, to be removed is objectively immoral. Societies throughout history that have been delinquent in regards to protecting their children have never seen long-term success, nor has history looked favorably upon them. Some may counter this position by pointing out that morality cannot be legislated, but this is very much a blinded view of history and society. The overwhelming majority of laws are based on morality. In fact, laws by design are an agreed-upon moral contract for a society. So choosing to believe that this is not available to a governing body to decide upon is to purposely ignore the immorality that is present. The second word I have chosen to describe this material is illegal. This is highly debated because what is being portrayed in these books is not considered sexually explicit or pornography by many. The argument offered is that the law states library material is only considered obscene if it lacks serious literary, artistic, political, or scientific value. I have a question. How is instructing children about sex acts any of those things? How is it literary valuable? How is it artistically valuable? How is it politically valuable? How is it scientifically valuable that our children understand sex acts? By that definition, then, would not this material be obscene, sexually explicit pornography? Would that not then make the library a tax-funded entity guilty of an illegal act? One final point I would like to make clear. Whether you agree with what I just presented or not, whether you feel morals can or cannot be legislated, or that this is not immoral or illegal decision, the absolute truth is that there is a God in heaven very much aware of what is transpiring, and he has made it abundantly clear what he considers right or wrong, good or evil, and he is capable of great judgment to those who sin against him. You may be worried about voters, board members, legislators, attorneys, or any other number of people, but I would be much more concerned about what God the Father says and thinks of my actions. May God give you the courage to make the righteous decision.
Thank you, Dylan. John DeVille. Hey, John.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It seems to me that when we talk about the spaces in our community for our children, we should be talking about what is safe, supportive, and loving. We need schools that are safe, supportive, and loving. We need libraries that are safe, supportive, and loving. Every single high school freshman that I've taught in the years since youth owning cell phones has become common in American culture has access to the most graphic material which they can peruse at their own discretion, outside any parental supervision. Any parent who thinks they have any sort of control over what their cell phone owning children can see doesn't understand, I would argue to you, the concept of digital natives who operate at the level of the National Security Agency when it comes to thwarting parental blocks and monitoring apps. They will seek and find what they want. So what's the difference between a cell phone owned by a 14-year-old and the Macon County Public Library? All the content in the library is all vetted. It's painstakingly vetted and curated. The library staff doesn't spin a wheel and select books at random. They consult Professional Library Association recommendations, Professional Reviewing Association recommendations, and so on. The library staff discuss, and they discuss some more. The Fontana Community Outreach Project polled our communities and received the feedback that library selection should reflect the diversity of our communities in an equitable manner, and that public polling further informed library selections. The word neutrality was tossed about freely at the last board meeting at the Macon County Library. And what I found interesting and noteworthy about the multiple uses of the term neutral from multiple speakers was that each speaker had a different definition of what constituted neutral, with the only variable being agreed upon was that, quote, neutral is something that fits with what I believe and doesn't challenge my beliefs. I don't think that there's a librarian or a library on earth nor in history who can fulfill such a nebulous notion of neutrality, except to convert libraries into mere empty structures with empty shelves, which has been done in Florida public schools. Maybe that's the mission objective, and I'm just too stupid to get it. When I reflect upon the tough decisions involving my students, when I think about how to address tough questions in the public arena, when I think about how I should interact with others in my daily life, I try to find a grounding, relatable person to emulate, a person who is all about providing allyship to the disinherited, the alienated, the marginalized, and the unloved, a person who is relentlessly supportive and loving, a person whose generosity of spirit and pocketbook seems to have almost no bounds. And that's the Smoky Mountain's own Dolly Parton. What would Dolly do? I think Dolly would say we need schools that are safe, supportive, and loving, that we need libraries that are safe, supportive, and loving. Leading an angry mob and accusing the loving, kind, and supportive and underpaid library staff of criminal behavior when there is no criminal behavior is just plain, as Dolly would say it, being mean. And Dolly says we shouldn't be mean. Dolly says we should love. We should open our hearts and wallets to make the world safer and more supportive for our children. We should be especially worried when there's a genuine national crisis of teens engaged in self-harm because their sexual orientation does not match up with what some people think it should be. Rather than taking the time, the effort, and our limited community energy to tear apart our precious library and its precious staff, and rather than making moves to dismantle the historic, precious, frugal, and cost-saving Fontana Regional Library System, I think we should be building it up. We should not be ripping into the library staff like a chainsaw run amok. We should be supporting them. In short, I think we should be spending our time to build schools rather than shortchanging this generation and the next. We should be adding other books and other media to the library and paying our staff properly rather than operating out of a center of hate, seeking to isolate or remove books that we don't like and tearing libraries down. We should be supporting the diversity of our communities in an equitable manner and supporting and loving our most vulnerable. We are indeed, as Dolly would say, rags of many colors, but we can stitch ourselves together as a community coat of mutual support, security, and love, just like Dolly's mama did.
Thank you, John.
I just want to take a moment real quick, Mr. DeVille, to just share something with you. You made a comment about neutrality.
Yes.
And the way that you kind of described it kind of makes it based on relativity. In other words, it's really relative as to the definition. What's relative, what's neutral to me may not be neutral to you, okay? I just want to submit to everybody in here, if we learn to understand something, it's in the name of relativity that got us in the mess that we're in with these kids today. Because we've removed the constant definition of what's actually right and wrong and turned right and wrong into what's relative. That means what's right to me may not necessarily be right to you, right? However, if we would have stayed the path on that in this country, we would not end up where we're at right now. Just to be clear, I am spearheading this concept with the library when it comes to bringing about sexually explicit pornographic material to kids. And it's exactly what it has to do with. It's harming kids. It has nothing to do with what community you represent. It has everything to do with protecting kids. What I cannot understand is how do we have adults who find it okay to give kids, children, pornographic material? So, which means under the guise of us being relative in everything, that means what's wrong to you about what you give a child that's harmful to that child is not necessarily wrong to me. I'm sorry, I just can't go with that. I stand strong in what I stand in, and it's not to harm anybody. It's certainly not to harm a library staff. It's certainly only to protect kids. My life's work is about protecting kids. So if anyone misunderstands what I'm saying, please, I'm saying this publicly right now. What I stand for is protecting kids. Science teaches you what pornography does to the mind of an adult. What in the world makes us think that that's going to be any better in the mind of a child? And it's pornography. No matter how you want to spin it, if there's an image in a book that's displaying a child performing oral sex on another child, that's pornography. Now, it was brought to my attention, the way we get around that is if it's a drawing rather than a photograph, it's considered to be art. Please explain to me what's artful, what's artistic about that?
Can we please move on with public comments?
I'm sorry?
Can we please move on with public comments?
As soon as I get done, we sure can.
Thank you.
No problem. So again, please don't mistake my position in this as I go through this, and that is my job right now is to protect these kids. And there's nothing protecting these kids when it comes to giving them pornographic material. It's sexually explicit material. To me, there's no gray area as to what's right and wrong in that. And that's just my position. And I just wanted to be clear on that because I don't want it to be misunderstood. And I don't want anyone else, really bringing this up to say that this is an attack on the LGBT community or another community. That's not it at all. I'm being very clear in what I'm addressing right now.
Tim Shaw. Tell us you got it done, Tim.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. And in the theme of helping children in the community, I'd like to give an update on the skate park construction. The town has approved a contract with the Artisan Skate Park Construction Company, and they have a great reputation and have built skate parks in Cherokee and Waynesville, and they're currently working on a project in Asheville. They will start construction on the park in May, and it's estimated to take approximately 150 days to complete. I recently spoke to Ryan Skaggs at the Region A Foundation. They are our fiduciary nonprofit partner. And he said the total monies raised in 2022 for the skate park construction through fundraisers, donations, contributions from companies, and the $35,000 from the county it totaled over $100,000 in contributions. Actually, $101,675,000 to be exact, so that's pretty good. The total cost of the construction of the skate park is to be $294,750. The town of Franklin is going to perform the initial grading and ground preparation, reducing that cost by $32,500. They will be guided by the representatives from the Artisan Construction Company because they'll be working on a project in Asheville at the time, and they can easily come over and check on things. The town of Franklin has also obtained a $50,000 grant for this project, making the total monies raised $151,675. $110,575 is still needed to be raised for completion of the project. Our group, Skate 28, will continue to fundraise. I was here last year at the March 8th meeting, and you all were very gracious enough to help support our cause with a grant of $35,000. It was also mentioned that night that an additional $50,000 would be made available during your next budget cycle. That additional $50,000 would certainly help with the completion of this community skate park construction. Thank you for your consideration on this matter, and also thank you for all you do for our community. Thank you.
Kim Leister. How bad to mess it up? Kim? What's your last name?
Good evening. I'm Kim Leister,
Leister, okay.
and I'm here. Where do I? Now where do I? I've got. Do I just tap on that?
Yeah.
'Cause I did it. Whoops. It's not coming up.
The folders moved down to the bottom,
This one?
I guess.
Well, I'll start.
Just double click on that.
use your mouse.
Don't worry, I know how you feel.
There it is.
Okay. Now what do I do? Sorry. All right. Oh, wait. Maybe this is. Never mind. Okay, I was gonna share pictures. I'm here this evening on behalf of a lot of, young mothers and families, and we're talking about children again, about the disrepair of the state of, the Wesley Park playground. I have to admit that when the, caution tape was up, it did provide, creative play, because kids could play crime scene. And now that, the plywood's up, they can play abandoned building, and, which is, you know, kind of interesting. And of course, we know that leads to abandoned buildings and urban blight. But that's not what this playground was originally designed to be. It was built in 2003 in memory of Wesley, and hundreds, if not thousands, of children use this playground regularly. Day camps use this playground. Daycares use this playground. Schools use this playground. And it's really seen a lot of use. When people come here and they've got children, this is the playground that they often take their children and grandchildren to. Prospective employees, they'll look at this as a resource. Not looking too good right now, folks. And people that go to the Greenway from across the parking lot, you can see the plywood real good. So anyway, sorry I couldn't share pictures, but you can go by there yourselves and see what's going on there. I want to commend law enforcement for their efforts to keep it a safe place. And I think it's really going to be helpful that Franklin Police Department now has a satellite at the Frog Quarters. And I really want to commend county employees who have worked diligently to keep the splash pad going in the summer and to try and, keep it a safe place for our children. I would also like to see. There you go. There's your pictures.
Oh, that's a nice one. Okay. I don't know where, oh, well, never mind. I shouldn't touch that. Anyway, I had a secretary who did that for me. Is somebody doing that? Anyway, I would like to see, some kind of provision for disabled children, such as a wheelchair swing, possibly, or, this should be a really good resource, not just for physical activity for our children, but for social activity for our children, where everybody can do it, where everybody's included, and it doesn't cost you anything. Thank you.
Oh, ma'am, hold on a minute. You make some very valid points, and I share your concerns. Do we have an update? I mean, is that part our responsibility, town of Franklin? I know Commissioner
It's a
Antoine.
county- it's a
Antoine-
county.
Well, I know Commissioner Antoine shared similar concerns. Can you help elaborate?
Yeah, it certainly is, and we'll get down there and, you brought it to our attention now, and I'll get somebody down there to take a look at it.
Thank you.
And just so you also know, we are trying to collaborate with the town right now to actually build an all-inclusive playground.
Right.
That's gonna be in a good location for everyone, so
Right.
we are definitely working hard on that.
But for now, I know the wheelchair swings are expensive,
Yeah.
but I mean, even if we just had one, I mean, because the ADA
Speak into the
wheelchair.
microphone, please.
Excuse me, I'm not used to it. The
Just bend
AD
it down where you get to it and don't have to stand. There you go. See if you can get it. Okay, try it.
The ADA swing that's at Parker Meadows, my grandson is 3 years old and weighs over 40 pounds. I cannot lift him in that if I needed to. Fortunately, we don't need to use that, but it's really not accessible. And that's the only one in the whole county. And we know that the Wesley Playground is used so much more. One other thing is, it's really
a disservice to Wesley and his family that this playground is in the shape that it's in.
Thank you, Kim. Ariel?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you. And thank you, Mr. Manager, for your comments. It means I may not sleep at night yet, but at least I have a reason for hoping. Some of you were not here in 2004 when one of the worst disasters that ever occurred in Macon County, the Peaks Creek tumult occurred. So I'm going to pass around a copy of what I made to raise funds for the victims of that. And it certainly instilled in me the awareness that change has real meaning. What we think is set today and will work for us tomorrow, it may evaporate in a heartbeat. I actually walked up Fishhawk following the landslide in 2004, and I was stunned to see that on a slope that is somewhere between 30 and 55 degrees, the trees are just sitting on this much earth, somewhere around 2 to 4 feet. And all it takes is a little bit of losing the support down below and opening the way for water to come in and just cause all of that to come sliding down. Now, the evaluators of the Peaks Creek community are probably ashamed to realize that all of that land is worthless. You can't build there. It's in a landslide zone. It's happened once. It could well happen again. But you contrast that kind of debacle with the town purchasing the Whitmire property. What was it, 1.1 or 1.2 million dollars they spent on that? And it's now a thriving disc golf area. It makes you wonder about the value of the dollar. There's a new level area in front of the fire department where a gas station used to be. That was like a $110,000 purchase, somewhere in there. And they probably will be well advised to just leave it as it is so that it doesn't interfere with the fire engine's egress. Just a block away is that derelict house that was in the news and all the neighbors on Green Street were upset about. That is being built in a fashion that will make Maconians proud. And it may well, in a year, be the premier house on that street. So change does, it gives and takes away. What I would urge you all to, in next year's election, please revisit that proposal for a sharing of the 0.25 cent tax between visitors and residents. I think the residents of Macon County were ill-informed to vote against it. I thought it was an absolutely fabulous way to keep our total tax bill low and yet pay for the school rebuilding. Please take that under advisement.
Thank you. Claudia Aguilar?
Good evening.
Good evening. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to
Let's-
address you all.
How do we work, how do we get some, is this mic working? Because you can't hear, can you? And whatever you say, we want everybody here to,
Okay.
not to interrupt you, but
No, no worries. I will use my big girl voice.
you, Brent, just a sec, give the sheriff just a second there. Here we go. Got a pro coming.
Check, check.
Oh, okay. Sorry to interrupt you, but what you have to say is important.
Gentlemen, thank you for allowing me to address you. You are all intelligent men, and you all won your elections free and fairly. You ran for office out of desire to guide this county in a direction that will improve the lives of all Maconians. My name is Claudia Aguilar-Ramaca. I'm 27 years old. I'm a mother, I'm a veteran, and if anyone doubts my service, I brought my veterans card. I was born here in Macon County when Angel was still delivering babies. As a teenager, all I wanted to do was leave this town because nothing ever happened here. But I counted down the days until my graduation so I could go off on my grand adventure in the military. The day came, I enlisted, my enlistment flashed before my eyes, and here I stand. I came to the conclusion that there really is no place like home, and when I took my oath of enlistment, I took it very seriously. I swore to protect and defend the United States Constitution from enemies, foreign and domestic. My sons and I visit the local library every chance we get. It's always been a favorite place of mine. The other day, during the library board meeting, the issue of children's books that some consider inappropriate was a topic that many in our county feel very strongly about. I've read a lot of children's books during my 7 years as a mother to my 2 wonderful boys, and I have yet to come across a book in our children's department that is graphic or vulgar. After serving honorably for 6 years, I learned some important things about our great nation. One of these things is that the First Amendment not only includes the freedom of speech, but the freedom to access information. While not explicitly written out in the Constitution, the Supreme Court ruled for the first time in 1965 that the First Amendment protections extend to the freedom to access information. The First Amendment gives everyone residing in the United States the right to hear every side of the issue and to make their own judgments about those issues without government interference or limitations. The First Amendment allows individuals to speak, publish, read, and view what they wish, worship or not worship as they wish, associate with whomever they choose to, and gather together to ask the government to make changes to a law or to correct wrongs in society. The right to speak and the right to publish under the First Amendment has been interpreted widely to protect individuals and society from government attempts to suppress ideas and information, and to forbid government censorship of books, magazines, newspapers, as well as art, film, music, and materials on the internet. The Supreme Court and other courts have held conclusively that the First Amendment right to receive information is as corollary to the right to speak. Justice William Brennan elaborated on this point in 1965. The protection of the Bill of Rights goes beyond specific guarantees to protect from congressional abridgment those equally fundamental personal rights necessary to make the express guarantees fully meaningful. I think that the right to receive publications is such a fundamental right. The dissemination of ideas can accomplish nothing if otherwise willing addressees are not free to receive and consider them. It would be a barren marketplace of ideas that only had sellers and no buyers. And that was from a ruling in 1965. The Supreme Court reaffirmed that the right to receive information is a fundamental right protected under the Constitution, when it considered whether a local school board violated the Constitution by removing books from a school library. In that decision, the Supreme Court held the right to receive ideas is a necessary predicate to the recipient's meaningful exercise of his or her own rights of speech, press, and political freedom. Furthermore, the North Carolina Constitution in Section 36 of Article 1 states that the enumeration of rights in this article shall not be construed to impair or deny others retained by the people. In other words, your rights end where mine begin. Many of you gentlemen are husbands and fathers, and I'm certain that your decision to hold office is out of concern for your own families and those within your circle of influence. The values that guide you align with many in our community. But our community not only includes those that you find common cause with, our communities include those that are a little different than you. It is your duty, sirs, to represent them as well, to make decisions in the best interest of us all. Lastly, I leave you with this quote to consider. If this nation is to be wise as well as strong, if we are to achieve our destiny, then we are in need of more new ideas from more wise men, reading more good books in public libraries. These libraries should be open to all, except the censor. We must know all the facts, hear all the alternatives, and listen to all the criticisms. Let our security, as well as let us welcome controversial books from controversial authors. For the Bill of Rights is the guardian of our security as well as our liberty. And that is a quote by John F. Kennedy. And if I can add one more thing, growing up, I knew that I was a little different. I'm bisexual. That's something that I've never even told my family. So this is my first time saying that in public. As a teenager, I tried to kill myself multiple times because my family wouldn't let me be who I was. You're talking about protecting all kids? Protect kids who are like me.
Thanks, Claudia. Thank you for your service.
I just want to say thank you for Claudia. I appreciate it. I know that had to be easy, so I do thank you for just taking the time to even come up here to address us. So I'm sorry about that.
Angela Fay, Martin.
Thank you. Hey,
Hey,
I left you a voicemail today.
long time no see.
A little bit of gray since then.
Welcome.
Thank you for allowing this public comment to take place. Thank you all for being our commissioners. And I appreciate the work that you have cut out for you with such a diverse and wonderful county that we have here. I appreciate you. So I needed a job really bad when I moved to Macon County in 2003. I was one of these women that didn't know better than to move to some rural place with her husband without a job lined up for myself. So I left a wonderful, good paying job in North Georgia, dream job really, so that he could have his dream job up here in Franklin. And I waffled around. I did data entry, did little, contract jobs for different nonprofits around here because that's what my professional skill set was nonprofit work. So a group of people that I got to know here in Macon County really helped me get hired at the Macon County Library to work in the Children's Services section. I had only, I hope they didn't do anything wrong by hiring me. I only had like a quarter of university behind me. But they told me that they didn't really have much choice than to hire me because I knew my literature and everybody on the board seemed to like me. So my campaign worked. But anyway, a lot of the people that I worked with at the library are still there. And I keep up with them. Some of them were friends before I went to work there here. But when I was in my early 20s, I lived in Atlanta and worked at Atlanta's largest independent bookseller. There were a lot of sections in that bookstore that I didn't approve of, that kind of scared me a little bit weird, a little bit violent even, some of it. And, but, you know, it was a retail bookseller. I got a good education on what was out there in the world that people could consume, that went way beyond the little Carnegie Library that I grew up with in my North Georgia town. More to the point, why did I get into books in the first place? It was because I had a very special uncle who bestowed me with a love for literature. He grew up in a small North Georgia town. And he lost his parents, as did my mother, at way too young an age. And so his local Carnegie Library was his safe place. And that same library became my safe place when I was a teenager and I was hiding from truant officers because I didn't go to very much of high school. I stopped and got a GED when I was 15 so that I could go to work for the state driving blind people all over North Georgia so that a visually impaired gentleman could show people how to function that were nearly blind. I just didn't go back to school. I didn't go to college after that. I just stayed in the workplace. So back to the library. When Pride Month would roll around, when I worked at the Macon County Library, someone at that hateful meeting had it wrong a couple of weeks ago. We didn't start putting Pride displays up in 2021. We started it when I was there. We started it when I jumped at the chance to help with the Pride display. I jumped at the chance to help with the MLK display because I have roots in Atlanta. And I'm very proud of MLK's legacy. I'm jumping around, but I want to say if we labeled all the books as such as people were calling for at that hateful meeting that kept me awake for 2 nights straight after I watched it, maybe we should take all the books that I consider bad for kids and label them too as Aryan, fascist, war glorifying. It'd be half of biography, the section, the Dewey Decimal System where biography is. It'd be half of biography and it'd be most of history. And it'd be a good bit of the religious books in there. So, if you bear with me, I'm sorry. Uncle Audley, spoiler alert, Uncle Audley was very gay. The uncle that bestowed my love of books on me. He was the only constant in terms of role models that I had in my life up until he passed away in 2004. I would put my Uncle Audley's moral compass up against anybody's that has ever breathed the beautiful air on planet Earth. And I would put the moral compass of my friends at this library up against anybody. And I also want to say, just be very clear, if you don't hear anything else I say tonight, that the library is intended to be a window to the world for kids and for adults. It is not a church. And I just want to tell parents and guardians, it is incumbent upon you to keep up with what your kids read. It is incumbent upon you to if your kid is too small to deal with any books or not, that are above their grade level and can't make decisions for themselves yet, it is incumbent upon you to filter that for your kids. You can't deny a public library, not a private library, not a church. You can't deny a public library. It's this window to the world for the kids of Appalachia. I really appreciate you bearing with me. I'm sorry it took so long. Appreciate you.
Nancy Scott. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you for allowing the public comment, and welcome. I came last week and you weren't here, John. John's one of my former students. Yes, glad to see you and glad you're serving. Well, I did write down something this time, and then so many people have spoken, and I want to reiterate some of what they've said. I'm here to speak against censorship. I'm here to speak in support of our library. I'm here to support our library board and our library employees. I was pretty outraged by what seemed to be manufactured outrage by some of the people at that meeting that I did not attend, but I've read about. And I think they're manufacturing these fears is very harmful. First of all, no librarian puts pornography in the hands of children. That's not done. And so people are scared for their children to go to the library because they think there's pornographic material there that's going to be handed to their children. Of course not. And I want to also say that and I know your heart is true about protecting the children of this county and making their lives as good as possible. But when we talk about LGBTQ people, it hurts a lot of them in ways that we don't see, because even if people think they are that, or other people think they are that, they get bullied. They get bullied on social media, they get bullied in person. And they don't even have to be LGBTQ to get bullied, as you know. But when we stir up hate to make a point of their own personal viewpoint, it only serves to divide and weaken our community bonds. And I just feel like if somebody demands certain books be pulled off the shelf, that's censorship. And it's banning books, and it's unconstitutional. And if somebody is offended by certain reading material or even a display, they don't have to read it. They don't have to participate in that. And they don't have to let their children participate in it. Even more offensive material is easily accessed by their smartphone and computers. And if you know what I've read that most teenagers now learn about sex on their smartphones on pornography. That's pretty horrible. That is pretty horrible. Our Macon County librarians and employees do an outstanding job providing library materials that meet the needs and interests of all kinds of people in our community. They provide a safe and welcoming space for all kinds of people. You have the freedom to read, to watch, and participate in the things you choose. And every one of us deserves that freedom. Thank you.
Lynn Hart. Lynn Hart.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I was,
You can't hear, can you?
I thought that I was signing some sort of attendance record. And I really, so let me give all of you a laugh for the evening, but I just want to say that I'm here with a representation of the Democratic women of Macon County. We are making a real effort to come to the city council meeting, to the county meetings, to really be up to date on all of the issues that are going on in our county. Most of us are very much in love with this community. A lot of us have families here. A lot of us have grandchildren here. I have college students up at Cullowhee. We are very concerned about the growth of our city, about it being a friendly place for young families, which I think we're failing a little bit on in our housing, that we're not providing enough affordable housing for young families. I think we're concerned about the general sometimes I feel like reins are being pulled back on some of the growth that we have the possibilities to make. And, but we are here as a group, as
It's always on. Light's always on. Thank you, Lynn. Rebecca Tipton. Thank you for leaning into the mic.
Hello, everyone. I came rushing home from an ice rink in Highlands to be here because I thought the chances were pretty good that the meeting that was had by the library board a couple weeks ago would be radically misrepresented by some, and that is what's happened. So I'm trying to set the record straight. Can you guys hear me? That's really short for me. Okay, I wrote this while I'm sitting here. It'll be better if I just read this than if I ad hoc, so ad lib. When it comes to our public facilities, such as our schools, our school libraries, our public libraries, we need to have honest dialogue, and we need to get past vague slogans such as safe, supportive, and loving. We need to get down to brass tacks of what this means for our kids. What does it mean for parental rights? There's a lot of complexity here. And to just use these vague slogans and then call other people hateful, sorry, I don't know who I'm talking to, call other people hateful is not at all helpful. It's not helpful, it's not good for the dialogue, and people end up talking past each other, throwing rotten tomatoes at each other, and no one is understanding what the real issues are and who is saying what and what they're saying it about. So I've been attending these meetings for the past 18 or 20 months. I've lost track exactly. So let me tell you a little bit about the last meeting. It's been misrepresented. There were about 80 concerned parents and grandparents that were there, and many of them spoke. There was no hate expressed by anyone present that spoke at that meeting. There was none. No hate for the LGBT community, no wish that all of their books would be removed. We didn't even speak about books being removed from the library shelves because it had disagreeable content. We spoke specifically to the issue of our children and what they can readily access and the need to have minimum safeguards for our kids when they go in the library. These are really different things than trying to censor. This is not what it's about. This is very uncomfortable. It is not about, I don't want to turn my back on anybody.
No, you're good. You're good.
It's not about censorship at all. It's about fundamental disagreements about how to see and be in this world, and conservative and Christian parents not wishing to have in our public spaces that we all pay for things being pushed on the notice of our children, some of whom are very little, who are not of an age to have those things discussed and brought up to them without their parents' consent. And that's violative to us, to go in the library and see things like that pushed, especially the gender theories. I'm not going to get into all the weeds, but and we could enlarge on this forever. But what is not being asked for is censorship and removal of books. That's not what we're asking for. We have asked for an LGBT genre label to go on the spine of books. This is genre label, which means that it can be recognized from the spine to guide the reader. So we have scores of genre labels. There's fiction, Christian fiction, science fiction, Western, there's romance, there's every label under the sun, and those help patrons evaluate whether they or their children want to read those books. Okay? Why do we use those? To help people identify books they want to read and do not want to read. So if we add an LGBT genre label, that is a non-judgmental, non-pejorative way for parents to realize that that is content that they may want to seek out for them and their children, or they may not. It's just that simple. That's what we've asked for about 20 months, all right? And there's all kinds of obfuscation, and there's all kinds of misinformation that comes into the debate. And I can't blame the people that share it because they may not be very well informed, but that is what happens. So library staff were not attacked at this meeting where 80 plus parents and grandparents were present. No one was attacked from the library. Our public servants were not attacked. There was a motion and conviction, but no one was attacking anyone. This was democracy at work, all right? There were positive, productive, and respectful discussions had in between the comment periods and at the end of the meeting, including concerned parents and grandparents, library staff, and members of the community. And it was a productive meeting, it was a good meeting, and we clearly set forth what we were asking for, but it's still being misunderstood. So I still have to go to these meetings and set it straight.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. So We want the LGBT genre label. This is a viewpoint neutral, non-judgmental label. There's no reason why this can't be done. All of the LGBT books in our library are already keyword filed and encoded for LGBT. There are about 900 or more titles like this in the library. Our main concern is, again, not what adults read or what adults have access to, but what our children have access to and what our children read. And it's very hard to ask parents to speed read a book for their child and perfectly vet it. That's why we have genre labels, to help people decide what they want to read and what they don't. There's nothing wrong with using this label, and it's not an intensive process. You can find all the books and you can label them. We label romance books. I can choose whether or not to have my 10-year-old daughter read a romance book with graphic heterosexuality, which I also would not like. All right? Okay. We also ask books not to be banned or censored, but to be moved out of the children's, but usually it's the teens that's really, really muddy. Okay, there's a lot of books in the teen section that just don't belong there. They have extremely graphic sexual material, discussion of sex acts, graphic discussion, graphic images of sex acts, and some of those titles, I think it's perfectly legitimate for members of the public to say, hey, this doesn't belong in the teen section, move it to the adult section. That is not censorship, people. It's not. It's still in the library. It's not censorship, okay? So when we get past the slogans and the flame throwing, okay, and the Molotov cocktails, we actually realize we agree on most of this, okay? So we also raised concern with this group called the American Library Association, which is a group that has a huge influence over the way our libraries are run, the books that get into our library shelves, and we've yet to determine exactly the relationship with this group that might be accountable for some of the influence that has been at our library. But this group has now elected a lady who is an out-and-out Marxist. Okay, did you know that, people? Are you happy with that? We are not asking our library to be a church library or a church social where we agree with everything. We're not asking for that, okay? But are you comfortable with our public institutions in a representative democracy being run by a lady? Her name is Emily Drabinski. She will take charge of the ALA this summer. And she says she's a Marxist, okay? That's worse than socialist. Socialists believe in the means of production being owned by the state. I already disagree with that vehemently, okay? But Marxists, furthermore, they go on to say they want a violent overthrow of our institutions so that they can institute Marxism. That's the lady that's running the organization over the libraries in this country. That's highly objectionable, and we should sever all ties with this group. And I guess that's all I got to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rebecca. That ends with
So, thanks so much for that, Rebecca. And also, I just want to make a comment, you guys. Anybody who understands or know me, you know that I'm a very compassionate person. My position doesn't change, but what I do want everyone who spoke here tonight to understand that for whatever's happened to you in your life, I need you to understand that I'm very compassionate towards that. I don't wish that on my worst enemy. You know, what you shared to me tonight was that's a big deal to me. That you would even go public for the first time with an issue in a setting like this. I know that can't be easy. So I'm just saying to everyone in here, if there is an issue and you'd like to speak to me, please don't feel alienated to contact me. I will listen. Me listening has nothing to do with whether or not I agree with you or not, because you have a voice. And we're trying to get everyone to understand that your voice does matter. It has nothing to do with whether or not I agree with you or not. I do have a firm stance in what I believe, but my stance is not to negate your feelings or what you've gone through in your lives. That's not the point at all. And I do thank you, Rebecca, for coming up and clarifying that, because the point of the library meeting was not to bring about any kind of hate. It was actually pretty specific. One newspaper article actually represented exactly what happened. But there was another article that just went off on a tangent about the LGBTQ community. And I know for myself, I'm not speaking for anybody else, but I know for myself personally, that's not what I was going at. So I'm just wanting to be clear in that, but I also want everyone in here to understand when you come up here to make a public comment, for me personally, it has nothing to do with whether or not I agree with you. It has everything to do with the fact that you are also a constituent. You're a taxpayer. Your voice matters. We got to get past this thing in government where we just alienate people because we have a difference in opinion or a disagreement with how we feel about something. It's not what I'm here for. And I will promise you this, if you contact me, I promise you, we'll have a conversation, okay? And I will listen to you. And my listening to you has nothing to do with being in agreement. It has everything to do with the fact that I need you to understand that your voice really matters to me. So I just want to be clear on that.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just have an update. Actually, our recreation director texted me while I was here, and the parts, replacement parts for the fixtures at Wesley's Playground have been ordered. They're like everything else, that they're really backed up right now, and they've been ordered for months now. We're just waiting on them to get here, so
Thank you.
that's an update
Because
for
it's
that.
been this way for like almost a year.
Yeah, the replacement parts are on order, and so we will get them installed as soon as they get here.
Thank
So,
you.
thank you.
And could the mold go away too?
Yes, I know that is one thing that, all of our facilities, the, recreation director is making a punch list right now, and I know as leading up to this budget, in the spring, we're going to get around to all those things and get that straightened out.
That's a turnaround right there now. Thank you, Derek.
Way to go, Derek.
A lot of people generally leave after public comment period, but thanks for coming. This is what it's all about.
That's right.
And I always feel that you can come in here with an opinion, and Danny spoke it best, you know. Thank each of you for coming. We will move on with the agenda. While they're moving out, additions to agenda. Anybody?
Mr. Chairman, you can take off 9A.
9A is
Uh,
reports
we
and
don't-
presentation, Macon Middle School air quality update.
We don't have an update. And that was what we said we'd do, we'd bring it back when you had an update.
But they are working on it.
Yes.
Okay, that 10A is removed. And I think, you wanna add something? Do we want?
We want to discuss appointments. Do we need more time to discuss appointments for the board chairman, or do you feel?
Let's do that later.
You feel like we're okay with this tonight?
Let's do, let's do it now. We're gonna lean on the liaisons to the respective departments for recommendations. And I think we wanted to briefly talk about Bitcoin.
Yes, so, gosh, I'm sorry. Manager, I'd like to, Chairman, let's discuss, Bitcoin mining regulations and ordinances, and, maybe, entertaining, looking towards, planning board discussion.
Okay, that will be, Mr. Chairman, we can add that. That will be agenda item 11G. And that will be, ordinance or regulation of cryptocurrency. Is that okay, John?
That's perfect.
We just want to kick it to the planning board, whatever the formality is required for that.
Is Joe still back there? Yeah. You good with that?
Any other additions, gentlemen? Lady? Okay, adjustments to and approval of the agenda.
Chairman, I make a motion, we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by raising your right hand.
All right.
Okay, Derek, I think we're to 10A under old business.
Uh-huh.
Acknowledgement of capital priorities for Macon County Schools as recommended by the Liaison Committee on February the 9th, 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For a recap, again, this is old business, a matter of formality here. Following the meeting between our school liaisons of this board and school system representatives, we looked at the capital priority list for the upcoming fiscal year that the school board had previously submitted. The liaison committee narrowed these recommendations down to 5 priorities. The Macon Middle School vent pipes, addressing that issue, was labeled an emergency, moving forward with that. The wastewater treatment plant at Nantahala, moving forward with that. Of course, the Franklin High School project, continuing to move forward with that. The Highlands Middle School renovation project, and the Macon Middle School track replacement. So those were the 5 priorities that emerged from that meeting, and I presented them here as part of the budget work session there on February 9th. As part of that, in acknowledging these priorities, we must also acknowledge that the pre-K, the Highlands pre-K, did not make that priority list. So with that being said, we need to, it will require us to take action to terminate this contract for architectural services at the Highlands pre-K. The contract amount, as you'll recall, was for $329,255. We've spent $35,262. We do have a deliverable in the form of the schematic design in case we decide to move forward in the future with that project. We will have those drawings from LS3P, the schematic design. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I think it would be in order for a motion to formally acknowledge these priorities for the Macon County School System for fiscal year '24, and at the same time to authorize the county manager to terminate the contract with LS3P for the Highlands pre-K renovation as allowed for in that contract.
Is that 2 motions?
And that would also need to be, contingent upon the school board approving the same. So contingent upon the school board acknowledging these priorities as well, and moving forward with the termination of that contract at the Highlands pre-K.
I'd make a motion for us to move on with the termination of the Highlands pre-K with the LS3P.
Contingent upon the school board's approval of the same.
And if the school board approves the same, then it's a done deal.
Yes.
Do we have to add any further action?
No further actions required by this board.
We have a motion on the floor.
Second.
Discussion. Have one question. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to kind of brief, Derek, do you know, I mean, is that the total to date on the design on that 329,000?
That 35,262?
Is that
That's
all
it.
we're gonna get billed?
That's it. Yeah.
No, I just want to make clear, and I spoke today with Hillary, and I know Jim was a part of, Chairman Breedlove was a part of this discussion, and that the Highlands project is worthy. It's a good project. It is needed. I think at this point in time, we have items that have been on this capital outlay request for a period of 10+ years. And I think this is just more of a prioritization, and I think there's a start to this set of plans, and we can pick up where we left off as, our capital improvement allows. So,
As far as those funds, Lori, what's the status? Where are those at? Are they out there in the cloud somewhere?
Well, y'all appropriated fund balance in the amount
We did
of
appropriate from fund
329
balance.
to, yeah, you appropriated 329,255 as a transfer to Fund 46, which is the school capital fund for this project. So those funds are already appropriated, so if you choose to divert them to another project, or you could make an action to revert the difference.
Last
If you
meeting,
want to revert the difference, if you wouldn't mind, maybe wait until next month, and I'll be glad to prepare the budget amendment if you want to reverse it.
just a suggestion, we approved funds to continue the design of,
Franklin
High
High School and
school.
Stadium, right?
can we take these funds, offset some of that, or does it
Well-
matter? Is it just a bookkeeping?
Yeah, it's kind of 6 one way, half a dozen other, because at the last meeting, you've already appropriated those funds out of fund balance. But like I said, the difference between the 329,255 and the 35,262.40, you could reverse the difference if you wanted to, and we wouldn't take it out of our fund balance and move it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
But like I said, if you wouldn't mind, if y'all, if I have the consensus, I'll be glad to prepare that amendment and bring it to you next month to reverse it,
Everybody good?
if y'all so choose.
You tell us what we need to do and how to do it.
Okay, I'll do that for next month.
Any more discussion?
Chairman, I'd also like to ask, Ms. Wilkes, would you or Mr. Breedlove like to comment on this while you're here, and thanks for coming.
Do I need to come up, kind of stand up here?
You're good. You talk loud.
What Mr. Rowland outlined is correct. However, if the board remembers what we did is, upon your request, we prepared a listing of our capital outlay priorities. And we list those in terms of what we consider to be importance throughout. Obviously, we had the 2 emergency items in the high school. We feel very strongly the high school is our top priority. I think we've made that very clear. However, we do not plan on removing the Highlands project from our capital outlay request. I appreciate what Josh said. We think it's a very important project. I think it provides a very needed services to the town of Highlands. And so it was behind the high school and a couple others, but by no means have we let up or don't continue. We will continue to pursue the request that we feel like that project should be given some very serious consideration as we move forward. Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know if you want to say anything.
I think it would be a shame to take funding away from the project that's already been budgeted for it. I think it would show a lack of investment in Highlands from this board to do so. We put a lot of work into this for 2 years. I've put a lot of personal time into this. I've spoken with most of you. You know the need. We've got 60 families on wait list in Highlands for pre-K and daycare. I've gone through how this works. With the addition of 36 children in pre-K at Highland School, that opens up our R2. We have 2 facilities that take in children for daycare in Highlands. That opens a 0 to 3, age 0 to 3 spots. Us moving our 4s and 5s pre-K into the school. There's not enough time tonight for me to go into the educational values. I think you all understand the benefits of a pre-K. There are 4 or 5 in Franklin. We have none in Highlands. It's disappointing. I'm disappointed that this is even on the table when Ellis-3P has already put in months of work and they're coming to the conclusion of their work. They're supposed to be able to put this out to bid March 1st. That's 2 weeks from now. We've got a middle school renovation that's gonna be taking place. So we're gonna renovate the side of a building and then go back and redo this when this project happens. I know you don't wanna waste money. It makes sense to bid these out together. It saves money in the long run. The price tag, in my opinion, it's a deal. It's $4.7 million. Changes the face of our community and invest in our students. So, I don't want to use the word offended, but I'm disappointed. I think we should be doing better for our students. I think this community together, I want to work with you all together from a Board of Education standpoint. I think there's a lot we can learn from each other. I've been heartened from my conversations I've had with all the commissioners. Mr. Antoine, you and I knew we need to get together, but please come up. I'll take you through the school anytime. It's up to the 5 of y'all and the 5 of us to do right for our school children in this county. I see a path forward to do so, but I think it involves a commitment to invest in them. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anything else, gentlemen? Any more discussion? All in favor, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you. New business. This is the fun part. Doug.
What, Mr. Chairman, that was a motion to remove the funding for,
Terminate the contract.
well, terminate the contract, okay. But wasn't there another part to that?
Contingent
Talking
upon the,
about contingent
contingent
upon.
upon the school board's approval of the same.
Right, well,
We both signed it.
I understand, but the Nanahala, the Macon Middle School, and the Franklin High School. But I will have to say, we need some consideration, and as I talked to Ms. Wilkes and everything else about Highlands, you know, we're talking about the middle school track. We need middle school track here in Franklin. We need a soccer field. Highlands needs something done with this soccer field. So to tell Highlands, you know, they're not gonna, they missed most of their season last year because of the water issues in that field. And so, and as I said before, it's not my responsibility to tell the school system what is needed. But to turn a blind eye to what we know is truly needed in Highlands for this soccer field is not a good plan of action in my mind. As I stated before, Highland soccer is equal to Franklin's football. If Franklin didn't have a football field over here, it would be a total nightmare. Well, it's a total nightmare in Highlands. So I need some kind of consideration when we go through this process to move forward or whatever, to at least have something done for Highland soccer. It's huge. And so I would greatly appreciate the school system and this board to keep that in their mind. It's very important in Highlands for the soccer field.
So what's needed for that?
Mr. Sherrill, can I add something?
Yes,
Sorry
sir.
if I'm out of order, that's all right. We are continuing to look for bids and for specifications for turfing that field. We have not stopped doing that for you guys. But we understand exactly what you're saying, the importance of that field and what it brings to the community of Highlands is, it's hard to describe how important that is. So we have not stopped looking. I'll be honest with you, we actually are looking for an engineer now to look at the drainage and tell us what would be best for the field in terms of, would it be drainage, would it be turf, and whatever. So I promise you, we have not forgotten about it, and we're pursuing all the avenues we can to bring a viable option to you guys for your consideration. Okay.
If I could just add to that, Commissioner Antoine asked what it needed. We're anticipating a bid coming in by the end of the month from a turf company. The environmental engineer will determine the viability for turf, for resodding. What we're planning to do is to set up an ad hoc committee of some local folks who have, we discussed this last week, that have knowledge of how the field was built, the drainage system underneath, and then bring that to the liaison committee so that they can vet it, and then it will come to y'all. And when we do that, we're gonna try to be as quick about that as possible, because we would like this done and funded prior to the summer so that we can get that work done over the summer in advance of the boys' soccer season. The girls, unfortunately, it just depends on the weather. I don't know, who knows? We could get snow in a few weeks, we just don't know.
Tremendous needs in the school system, tremendous needs in county buildings. It's a matter of prioritization. Nothing's off the table, but we can't fund everything at one time. So it's a matter of it's a process.
And we appreciate y'all doing that. Please don't take anything we said as criticism.
No.
You gentlemen have one of the toughest jobs I can imagine. I wouldn't do it, basically. So I admire y'all's willingness to step up and do it, because you're faced with hard decisions. So we appreciate everything y'all have done for our school system. We appreciate what you're considering on prioritization and capital needs moving forward. So thank you. That's all.
Thanks for coming tonight.
One thing that I will add to that, I have spoken to the town engineer in Highlands. Most of the water issues that are coming onto the soccer field and causing these issues are coming off the school. And as far as I understand, the school owns that property above the soccer field. So I have talked to the engineer to see if it's a possibility of turning that water away, and I believe it would solve most of our issues if we can work with them to get drainage going through the open property.
What we don't want to continue the cycle on, like the Highlands roof, cost the taxpayer $400,000 to replace a standing seam roof. Improperly installed, leaked for 12 years. This soccer field was constructed 12 years ago?
12, 14 years.
12, 14 years ago, and that's a swamp. We can do better than that. And I appreciate the due diligence that this board, that y'all are taking. Let's don't do it wrong. Put in a drainage system. It's gotta last more than 12 years. We can't continue the cycle
I agree
of
totally.
building and rebuilding. So I appreciate the time. Let's measure twice and cut once. And I appreciate the due diligence that y'all are exerting on this. So,
Very good. We appreciate y'all. Thank you.
thank you, John. Did you get the vote count, Mike?
No. My understanding is that the vote was on stopping the termination of the LS3P contract. From what Mr. Shields said.
And then I think we need to acknowledge these priorities as well. In a way, in a roundabout way, we are acknowledging these priorities by, I mean, if you'll look, the vent pipes, they're actively searching right now for somebody to look at that. We have something budgeted in our CIP for that. Nantahala wastewater treatment plant, we have money budget, we have money identified in the CIP for that. Franklin High School project, we authorized $1 million at the last meeting to continue design work at phase 1 and phase 2. Highlands Middle School renovation, we've submitted an application to the needs-based capital fund. That's been approved, and that is fixing to go out. The architect is done with that work, fixing to go out for bids on that. And the middle school track replacement, as I understand, they're getting bids on that too. So in a roundabout way, just what I wanted to be sure is that the liaison committee is so important to the schools in this aspect, because you have a portion of this body and a portion of the school board. You have 2 elected officials each, 2 from the school board, 2 from our board, that come together as this liaison committee, and that liaison committee identified these priorities. So I just think it's very important that we acknowledge that, and acknowledge, that we're trying to work in lockstep with the school and take out what they're identifying as their top priorities. We're trying to get those handled. But like you said, Mr. Chairman, it's just very difficult to do it all at once. And so that's why, these emergencies were identified in these other projects. As Chairman Breedlove said, the Franklin High School projects, they're number 1. Right now, the middle school renovation, there was funding left over in the middle school project, about $600,000 from that renovation. Plus, the schools are going to be able to get a $109,000 grant to be put with that. The Highlands Middle School renovation, we had money in the needs-based public school capital fund. So all of these projects, that's how they came about. They were either emergencies, the high school was the first priority, and there was available funding for these other ones that was readily available. So that's how these priorities were arrived at. And so I think that it's just very important that we acknowledge that. I don't necessarily think that we have to have any motion to that effect, but just to acknowledge that these priorities were identified not just by the County Board of Commissioners, but this was brought to the Board of Commissioners from the liaison committee that's made up of representatives of the school system and the county.
And the flaw, in my opinion, in the liaison process is quite frequent. I didn't know that some of the decisions were made in the last school board liaison committee until I got here in the meeting from the architect. And maybe that's the flaw in the system, is how does the liaisons from all of these different departments share information with the 5-member board when you can't meet with over 2 members? So maybe somewhere in our monthly discussions, we might ought to have just a blank liaison report to the full board, not to get into some diatribe for 30 minutes or anything, but just a brief update. This is food for thought.
Good with that, or we might be able to have somebody take notes, similar to what Mike's doing tonight in those meetings. And then we could present notes to the board and the public, honestly. There's nothing that goes on in liaison meetings.
And they'll be recorded in the minutes, but they'll show up next month.
I'm talking about in the liaison,
the
committee meetings.
Oh, committee meeting,
Just an option.
What do you want to do? Thank you, Doug, for being patient.
Not a problem. I appreciate it.
2022 Outstanding North Carolina Conservation Farm Family. This is Mr. Doug Johnson, the Soil and Water Conservation District Director, and Lori Carpenter, Finance Director.
Yep.
Doug, thank you.
And I asked Sarah Clancy to come with me also. She's our ag cost share specialist with the district, and she can answer these questions maybe better than I can. But good evening, and I'm happy to say I think I'll have the least controversial thing on the agenda tonight. If I don't, I'm in trouble, I think. So, we're here to request a budget amendment in the amount of $9,000. The information for that is included in all y'all's packets, I think. Lori did a good job of that. And, but a little bit of background. Each year, the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts recognize a statewide outstanding conservation farm family of the year. And they've done this for many, many years. And Macon County has never had a statewide winner. And I'm proud to say that they do now. H&H Farms of Macon County was chosen as the 2022 Outstanding Conservation Farm Family for the entire state of North Carolina. So it's a pretty big honor. It's pretty prestigious. And I can tell you from, having known and worked with the Huskisson family and everybody associated with H&H Farms, it's well-deserved. And they do a good job, do a lot of conservation practices through our office and through some federal offices and stuff. They do a good job with what they do in their stewardship. So that being said, the reason we're here is that the particular Soil and Water Conservation District that nominates their farm family, if they win, they're required to host a celebration event, which is usually has somewhere between 150 to 300 people attend. Invitees include the governor, the commissioner of agriculture, various state and local legislators, and all y'all, I hope, will be able to attend. It'll be May 8th. I think it says on the packet when it is.
May 9th.
May 9th. Uh-oh. Well.
At the Moss Valley venue.
So.
Moss Valley venue. Mhm.
Yep. So anyway, and so the district is responsible for securing the venue, providing food, et cetera. But in order to pay for this, the North Carolina Association of Conservation Districts and in partnership with the NC State Grange, they give the district $5,000, and then they match up to $2,000 more of what we can raise from local ag businesses or organizations or whatever. And Sarah's already got that secured. We're good with our match and everything. Not going to cost the county anything. So we just need I think the budget amendment to move them, yes, so that we can get yes. Yep. So we're requesting that budget amendment, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them at this time.
I just want to say thanks for coming tonight. That's a fabulous family, a fabulous addition to our community. The corn maze, the produce stand,
Yep.
the ice cream. I mean, that's preserving our heritage. So I'm excited to see you guys like that.
So I think they there's two reasons they won. Number one is because they stand on their own merit. What you just said is exactly right. And then I'd say that the other reason is Sarah did a good job. She did a bang up write up for the nomination and everything. She really made them sound. They didn't need a whole lot of embellishment, but she did a good job making sure everybody knew what they had done and everything. So.
Are you inviting her to the venue?
I think she'll be able to.
I might get invited.
That was a really cool Facebook little video ad they had. I mean, when I looked at it the first day, there was over 10,000 views.
Yep.
It's actually available on just if you Google like Farm Bureau, Conservation Farm Family, North Carolina. You can find it on YouTube as well if you don't have Facebook. If you haven't been able to see it.
Yeah,
So.
Farm Bureau did that.
Or we can email it out.
They brought out a drone and got a lot of good footage and everything. It's a pretty impressive video. So.
Thank you all for your involvement. That's big, and you got a local family.
For
Young
the-
people to stay here, raise your families, and do what they're doing, man, it's phenomenal.
It really is.
We're
and
proud
it's-
to work with them.
it's
yeah.
a-
Thank you all for your involvement.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Appreciate y'all.
What do we need, Lori?
A motion and a second to approve the budget amendment, please, sir.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion. We approve a budget amendment to appropriate $9,000 in funds from the North Carolina Association of Soil and Water Conservation Districts and donations from the public to fund an event recognizing H&H Farms scheduled for May.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Further discussion? Compliments?
Are we invited?
Yeah, absolutely.
Most definitely.
I hope you will. I hope you will show.
Please be there.
Please do. And there will be email, or what do you call
We'll
it?
do it in like
Evite
an
or something,
Evite
I
type,
don't know
but
what
we'll
that.
also send you actual invitations as well, so you'll get those.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Let the record reflect as unanimous, and thank you to.
Thank you.
Sarah.
Thank you
so much.
This is Dee Dee.
Thanks.
All right, under new business, 11B, Solid Waste Director Chris Stahl, and he has a number of items here.
Just two this time.
Pardon?
Just two this time.
Just two?
Yeah, just two. Won't take but a second. Let's see, which one have you got on here first?
We'll do the McGill Associates and Middle Emmons for a vertical expansion
Okay.
of Macon County landfill, and I have one question when we're done.
Okay, maybe I'll answer it now, I don't know. But if you remember, I came to the board in December, and the board accepted our recommendation for BLE and McGill as the respondents to our RFQ. Yeah, RFQ. Sometimes I get those mixed up. But so what the board approved at that time was, okay, we'll accept this recommendation and then authorize the county manager and his designees to enter or to secure contracts, negotiate contracts. I have placed those contracts in your agenda packet. The total of those comes to $113,450. As a little bit of an explanation as to why there's 4 contracts. Well, one, there's 2 companies, so that gets you halfway there. But the big thing is the process for getting this permitted and so we can take advantage of this airspace is much different in Cell 2 than in Cell 3. Because Cell 2, well, one, the volume means it's a major amendment, which triggers a lot of things with DEQ, but also the recension of the status as closure to reactivate it. So if you look, yes, the size is different, the money's different, but there's a lot more steps involved in Phase 2 than there is Phase 3. So that's just to give you an explanation of why there's 4 contracts. The work's very different. Same end game, but the steps are much more numerous and onerous in Phase 2 than 3. So.
Can you briefly refresh us as to the purpose of why we're doing this?
Sure. We are doing this. Well, one, as I've spoken to you, and you'll see this again come budget time, reflected in a number of ways, not all monetary, just explanatory. But since COVID hit, our tonnage rate, our daily tonnage rate, or our annual, however you're going to do it, has exploded. We went up by over 7% 3 years in a row. The last couple of months, we've seen a little bit of slowdown, but this, when we built the current cell, at 30,000, and now we're at 36, 37, it's consuming space faster than it was supposed to, than we were prepared for. So the time, basically, there's 2 big things here. One is, if we were to set about to build the next piece of the landfill, which I'm trying to stave that off because we're still paying the note on the current phase, and I would love to get past that. Basically, we probably don't have time to build that capacity before we run out of capacity. So the new landfill phase permitted in 2018, 17, I think. But that landfill was permitted with a 4-to-1 outer slope, whereas I almost said that backwards. Our new one is permitted with a 3-to-1 outer slope. The phase 2, when it was permitted back in the early 90s, was permitted at a 3-to-1 final slope. Basically, we know more now. We know we can go to 4-to-1 without the sides falling off or sloughing off. And so the purpose of doing this is, one, to extend so that we have time to build the next landfill cell. It's also to extend us to get past our current debt service payments. But then mostly, it's getting us 4 or 5 extra years of landfill life in the same space for $100,000, for roughly $100,000. Whereas, as just if you're figuring the math as I'm talking in your head, 5 years ago, $8 million, 4 or 5 years of space for $100,000 is quite the bargain. So, this, yes.
I'll interrupt you, but like, what kind of headspace does that buy you? Is that about 3-to-1, 4-to-1? Is that 10 feet, 20 feet?
Well, at the last meeting, I brought a slide that didn't work, that wouldn't open, that I could answer that well. It's probably, of course, it's limited by the width, and phase 2 is not super wide. But if we're consuming, 50,000 cubic yards a year, and we're estimating to get 4 years of life, it's a couple 100,000 cubic yards. To put that on a map, I would just need to show you the map, but.
Chris, got
Yes, sir.
question. If you've had 2 years of 7% increase, 3, what is that? What is it, product? What?
Oh, why have we seen that?
Where's it coming from?
Well, I think 2018, the industry, and I'm not big on gimmicky slogans. They mostly annoy me. But 2018 was deemed the COVID cleanout. So everybody had to stay home, and everybody decided to clean up the place. Not everybody, obviously. Different topic. But this was seen statewide, nationwide. Everybody just started cleaning up. I think what we have seen in 21 and 22, or 2021 pleading into 22, has been just the influx of people and the construction and development of different projects. And I think now that's, I don't have my finger on the pulse of real estate in Macon County, but I think that maybe, I'm assuming that's slowing down a little just because of what the interest rates are going to for mortgages. And I think that's why we're finally starting to see, a little bit of slowing down. Abby.
Yes.
How many new homes have we, or how many home sales have we had in the last 3 years from non-Maconians? I know that's a trick question. You couldn't possibly know that, but.
Well, I will tell you that in last year in our new construction, we had over 2,000 permits.
Yeah,
800, at least 800 of those were either new houses or remodels, where they tore houses down, rebuilt houses, bigger houses.
And that number in 16, 17, 18 would have been?
Between 600 and 800.
Yeah, so 600 to 800 to 2,000, and that's a lot of waste. And I think I told y'all when I was here in December, we do expect it to come back to normal. Normal's not the right word. We expect to get back to pre-COVID levels, or a 2, 3, 4% increase. But right now we're sitting at a 23% increase, and so it's independent of everything I said, it's just good business if we can get 4 or 5 years for $100,000. I mean, like if you put this part on your car, you can go another 50,000 miles. Well, shit, you need the part. I mean, so any more questions?
All right, gentlemen, what's the pleasure of the board?
What are we asking for?
What I'm asking for, and I just happened to remember, what I'm asking the board for is an approval of basically an awarding of contracts for these services in the amount of $113,450, dependent upon a change, a budget amendment that Lori has in her. No?
This is gonna come from the remaining.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
9.8 million, so
You're
there's
right.
no board action.
We had that whole,
Yeah, we had the whole
conversation. So, the money, so we don't need the last part. I just need the board to authorize the county manager to enter into these contracts for these services in the amount of $113,450. And now that I remember, I talked to Lori the other day, I'll make this point. To get these years, like the engineering is $113,450, but there's not like more cost behind that. We will be doing the construction and filling the landfill. So this is the entire project. This is not the engineer work to lead to me coming back for another $2 million. This is it.
So we need motion to that effect?
Yes, like he said, to just approve the entering into the 4 contracts in the amount of $113,450 total.
I make a motion that we go into contract for $113,450. Just out of reading, what about the $193,200? Is that a player?
That's a separate motion.
Separate, that's
separate.
separate. Is that the second one?
Yeah, that's your second. That will be a separate motion.
I'll go with the first one then.
We haven't
113.
talked about that one yet, so
Okay.
yes. that'll go.
All right.
You got to keep me straight, Mr. Shields. I'll freak you out up here.
We have a motion by Mr. Shields.
Thank you.
And this discussion,
Discussion.
this comes from the landfill.
Enterprise fund
Enterprise
dollars.
fund. Has nothing to do with the general
No,
fund
no.
county.
And I don't know if you catch what I stated earlier, because I said it kind of quickly. You know, back in 2016, we borrowed 9.8 million to construct the new landfill. We have about 700,000 left out of those funds. Some of it's earmarked for other projects, but there was enough left that we can cover this $113,450 out of that. And it still meets the original intent, because like you said, with these funds, the engineering fees will be able to enable us to expand the life of those 2 cells.
Well said, Lord, thank you. So the motion second on the floor, all in favor signify by raising your right hand. The record reflect unanimous.
Thank you,
Then we go
gentlemen.
to, consideration of award for 2 walking floor unloader transfer trailers from Pinnacle Trailer Sales.
Yes, sir. I put a bid tab in your package. We had 2 bidders. This is to purchase 2 walking floor trailers. These are the trailers that are used at the Recovery Building in Franklin and the former Bale Building. I don't know how many of you venture in there. I think Paul does occasionally, but most importantly, they transfer. This is how we get trash down from Highlands. As you may remember, back in October, we had 1 trailer burned to the ground, and so we're looking to replace that trailer. We have a fleet of 4 trailers from Highlands, and we bought them all, of course, back in whatever year, back in '08 when we built that thing. So I had a replenishment of, I tried to start spreading them out every 2 years, so we weren't hit with 4 worn out trailers at the same time. The second trailer is for Highlands, but it is not a fleet replacement. It is a fleet addition. It is to have 5 trailers in Highlands. When we built that transfer station, we were doing about 20 tons a day. Now Highlands is probably averaging 60, And when there's big projects going on, like there's something going on at a bridge up there right now, and somebody else is tearing something down. But they did over 80 tons today. It's not uncommon for them to hit 80, 100 tons. And you just can't scale up a 20-ton operation to 80, 100 tons. I mean, this won't be the end of what we're going to have to do unless, like I said, unless the building and development up there slows, and I'm not wishing that on anybody. But, I mean, maybe don't do the school thing, so I'm kidding.
Well, I've got a question about that. You want 5 trailers?
Now, I want 2.
Well, I mean, I see one truck and one trailer coming up and down the mountain every day. These 5 aren't on the road continuously, right? Are you wanting to use these for on-site storage?
No, we do not do on-site storage. That's getting into permit stuff, no.
No, I'm saying in the trailer and have the one truck just kind of truck the whole time and use.
Well, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, this is not the end of the changes that are going to have to be made. With the drive time up 106, et cetera, we're on the horns of there's going to have to be 2 trucks going up and down the mountain. Now, J&B Disposal, that obviously provides this service, they do have 2 trucks. And I think you're looking at about a 3-hour turn. So if we have, well, like today, we had to leave waste on the floor and notify our inspector of that. Unfortunately, we've had to do that about a dozen times in the last few months, and so he ain't happy because this, it's not supposed to happen. But it's just been a matter of, a tarp arm goes bad or brakes go bad.
Let me just ask this question.
So,
You have one truck pulling 5 trailers. That's
well,
my question.
right now we have one truck pulling 4 trailers. But while they're pulling a trailer, other trailers are being filled at the transfer. We have a jockey truck at the transfer station that's pulling additional trailers in and out. So when that one truck comes and bidding on it.
That's what I meant by on-site storage. That makes sense. I'm okay with
But okay, I was missing. The on-site storage is limited to 24 hours. By rule, it's 72, but that's because there's a weekend. So yes, they do get backed up, and we have parking pads in case leachate comes out of them. I mean, but they're not designed to sit there indefinitely. They're going to be moved the next. There'll probably be two tractor trailers at the transfer station at 6:30 in the morning to try to get us caught back up from today. They had one just came out of the shop, and the other one, little radiator hose, that got us behind.
My last question, I'm sorry.
Oh.
What about the insurance money on the one that burnt down? Why are we paying for these out of pocket?
Oh, God, I wish you hadn't asked that.
And I'm just.
Okay, number one, one's a second trailer, so that's right out. Number 2, we didn't have insurance on the trailer. The trailer that we use in the recovery building goes from the recovery building to the landfill and back. It doesn't go on the road. It never leaves the property, so no insurance.
I imagine you're going to insure these trailers?
These trailers, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Go ahead. No, it's a good discussion.
I love it. I mean, that's sincere, not snarky.
No, and everything I'm asking is sincere. I just, I frequent the Highland landfill.
Uh-huh.
So I'm sorry about that.
Well, like I said, they're just killing us. I mean, we're just, that transfer station was just never imagined it was going to go from 20 to 80, 100 tons a day. We got some other issues up there that I'm going to be taking a harder look at and trying to take care of.
Is Bonita not interested in buying these trailers and providing that service turnkey?
I mean,
Has that been
okay, this is snarky. I don't know why she would be. I mean, the agreement has always been we supply the container, she supplies the transport. I'm sure there are a lot of these agreements that exist around this, but, you know, yeah, I mean, that could happen. It's just a matter, it just makes the price go up so that those are getting amortized in the bill. So, the one good thing about us having the containers, owning the containers is, and I think probably the reason it was set up that way is for maintenance issues. If you've got, and I'm not speaking about J&B Disposal, but if you've got some jackleg hauling company running cans, terrible cans, and stuff's flying out, and, you know, blah, 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 these are our cans. We're responsible for the cans. And so when there are problems, we fix the cans or replace, depending on exactly how bad they are.
Again, that's enterprise fund money?
Yes.
Is that part of that leftover?
No.
No, it's not.
It's
It was
separate.
part of the budget process.
It's money that was in the budget that we're moving from one thing to another.
One trade, one capital expenditure.
One
for
capital
another.
expenditure for another, yes. And it's not the Carson Center.
Thank you for that explanation there. Gentlemen, you've heard the discussion. What's the pleasure of the board?
Is that the 193, 200?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes.
So motion to award the bid to Pinnacle Trailer Sales Incorporated in the amount of $193,200 for the 2 trailers.
That's my motion. I can't find my
You're
word.
sticking by it.
I'm sticking by it.
Mr. Shields has a motion. We have a second. I'll second the motion.
Thank you, sir.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Let the record read, left, it was unanimous. Thank you for your.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Mr. Tommy Jenkins, consideration of lease renewal at the Business Development Center.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen. This evening, we've got 4 lease renewals for the Macon County Business Development Center. Excuse me. You have those in your package. They are Appalachian Growers LLC, which is a hemp concern. Macon County Board of Education for their STEM program, which also includes a aircraft stimulators, so they've been growing out there. Tico SSL, which they manufacture vehicle lighting inspection stations for automobile manufacturers. And water wheel manufacturing, who design water wheels and sell them.
All existing resident or?
All existing. We usually try to run those on a three to 4 year program with each company. With COVID, we added an extra year on those, I think, last year. You know, they're all good tenants, all pay the rent, so, and I think by hopefully this time next year, they'll be ready to fly on their own. Also, we have 30-day out on the county side, so if we have another use for that building, we can.
We're not raising the rent on it.
No, sir.
Gentlemen?
I've got a couple quick questions.
Yeah, okay.
I'm trying to find the rate for the water wheel.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess a couple concerns.
All right.
Are the intent 220?
212, yeah. And it's an office space.
Isn't
It's
the
small.
intent of this is to grow small businesses, and kind of once they wean, you kind of wean them off,
Right,
let them go on their
mhm,
own?
right.
Just my concern is, if we keep renewing these leases, why would they leave?
Well, we're going to move them on, which we're in constant conversation with them. But, and usually we run a 3 year program, which we have to 4 because of COVID. But yeah.
Well, you see, I'm not trying to be.
Oh, no, I totally agree with you.
And then
Doc.
like for $212 a month, we're leasing office space to Water Wheel.
Mhm.
I'm not sure how many employees they
Right,
employ,
right.
but $212, I mean, you can't, I don't know anywhere you can. rent
Well, I can
$212 a
understand,
month.
and, you know, and I've told those guys, especially on the office space, if we get someone wanting a business that we can charge more, they've got a 30-day out, so. Yeah, no, I understand, but, you know, we're trying to incentivize some private business growth.
How many employees does Water Wheel?
Water Wheel, there's a couple out there. They use some local, you know, they use local vendors also, so there's some ripple effect to that, too.
I like what they do.
I understand where you're coming from, Josh. Yeah, okay. Could we could ask the county attorney if we could do all those by acclamation, or we need 3 different resolution.
I was just on the one resolution with water appeal. Let me know if that's a misprint, but in the second resolve, that one says for a period of 1 year from February 14, 2021.
Well, that should have been 23. That's my fault. I was the
I just didn't know if that one got.
I was the secretary on that.
Okay. Unless somebody wants to discuss one of those individually, they can be done with one motion. It won't take 30 seconds to do them all. 3 of them separately. But I don't care unless somebody wants to discuss them.
It's a pleasure of the board.
Do them all at one time.
Got a motion, Mr. Shields?
A second.
Got a motion, Mr. Shields, second by Mr. Young. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Tom.
We can see you. See you.
Okay, Joe Allen, need to schedule a public hearing. And we will let the planning director, Joe Allen, elaborate further.
Okay. On January 12th, 2023, the planning board voted to recommend a change to the watershed protection ordinance under 156.32C and 156.32A table footnote. Those currently read that the planning board is authorized to approve special non-residential intensity allocations. The planning board is recommending that the word planning board be replaced with the watershed administrator. The reason for this recommendation is these special non-residential intensity allocations are not variances or appeals. They're just requests that have a list of requirements to be met. If you meet those requirements, then they're going to be granted. And the planning board doesn't feel like that they need to hear that.
Gentlemen?
I'm looking for, my slide, there's 117 pages on this agenda, I'm sorry. But,
I got them marked there. And I think the main one's going to be on the next page, Josh.
but Joe and I have discussed this, and everything's talking about essentially bookwork, and,
So basically what these non-residential intensity allocations are is there's a bank of watershed areas, watershed 2 in Highlands, watershed 3 in Highlands, watershed 3 in Franklin, watershed 2 in Franklin, or R2PJ, that are government lands that are never going to be developed. So this allows us to steal a little bit of that to allow commercial businesses who need parking, need bigger buildings and where you're going to have for a house to be able to do that without being limited to 24% impervious surface. So if somebody comes and shows us a need for a commercial property to have this, shows us their site plan, shows they need it, we've got it to give, we've got to give it to them. So
Joe, what do you need from us?
I think we need to set a public hearing, Eric.
Yeah, we're making that one change. It's to an ordinance. We have to have a public hearing just to change that one word.
Yeah.
And you need that in form of a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion, we assign a public hearing, the watershed protection permit, as directed by Joe Allen,
March 14th.
on March 14th.
6 p.m.
6 p.m.
West Main.
I second.
For a motion second. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, Joe. We'll see you next month.
Hey, Joe, while you're here, would it be appropriate? I guess it isn't.
Yeah.
I'm not going to leave.
I guess we're out of line, aren't we?
I'll wait.
Okay,
I'll wait.
okay, sorry about that.
I'll wait.
Okay, yeah, we can,
I don't want to jump you.
we don't have to stay in line, Joe. No whack at us too anyway. Derek and Eric, our legal counsel, resolution authorizing execution of opioid settlements.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Eric, you can certainly fill in the gaps as needed. As you'll recall, Macon County, following the settlement with the big 3 drug company distributors and Johnson & Johnson, Macon County is slated to receive approximately $3,009,000 in opioid settlement funds. These are referred to as Wave 1 funds, and that is from 2022 through 2038. Along with that, they have recently negotiated a new settlement where we will see more than 750 or 600 million coming to North Carolina from the new settlement. And this is with CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Allergan, and Teva. And so what we're doing here tonight is in order for us to receive the payments for Wave 2, which will total 2.4 million from 2023 through 2026, in order for us to sign on to receive those funds as well, in addition to the Wave 1 funding that we're receiving, there is a resolution that's included in your packet, and the board is simply adopting this to authorize us to sign on to the Wave 2 settlements.
And so we're authorizing Derek to basically accept that money. Then the issue will be, we have to spend this money purely on the opioid issues. It can't be appropriated to anything else. Right now, Region A,
Yes, we currently have received, to date, we've received approximately $389,000 from the Wave 1. So this money just keeps accruing. And so what, like I say, it will be about 5.4 million total at 2038. But right now, the Southwestern Commission has put out an RFP for consultative services for a region-wide approach for all the counties in our 7-county western region for this consultant to come in and discuss ways to potentially use this funding for a region-wide benefit. So there's a lot of things like that taking place in the background that will perhaps shed some light on some innovative ways to spend this. But for right now, what's important is that we have the framework in place to allow us to accept these funds. So by doing that, by signing on to this resolution, or approving this resolution and signing on to it, we're able to do that.
We talked about this this morning in mental health, and this is a very important piece that they feel like we need to go ahead and sign on to this so they can carry out their provider information too.
You're talking about signing on to the settlement?
Yes, because some of that money, they've got providers and stuff like that, will tap into this. We have to sign on to it first.
So with that being said, I think it's in order for a motion to approve the resolution by the County of Macon authorizing execution of opioid settlements and approving the supplemental agreement for additional funds between the state of North Carolina and local governments on proceeds relating to the settlement of opioid litigation.
That goes for 18 years. They divvies out over 18 years.
It's 16 or 18. It's 16 or 18.
I believe it's 18.
It was 18 for the first part, but the second.
I think the second one might be 16. It's 9?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
It says here, let's see, bear with me 1 second.
While you're looking, I'd like to make sure, Mr. Ridnour, you vetted this, and are there strings attached with these funds?
Yeah, well, it has to be spent on opioid and basically.
I mean, other than restrictions on spending.
Restrictions, yeah.
Is there any, adverse effects? on
No,
signing
this is just saying, yeah, we'll take that money.
Yeah, and for previous boards signed on to the first wave, and, that's what we were speaking about, we've received the $389,719 to date. And if you look in your audit report last fiscal year, Schedule D12, you'll notice that we created a special revenue fund, opioid settlement fund, because we must track it accounting-wise and keep up with it separately, and make sure that when it accrues interest, it has to be, the interest earned on it also has to be spent on those, stringent guidelines.
And this board will have to decide how to spend that. Currently,
Yes, that's
Southwestern Commission
Yeah.
is exploring a regional approach, pooling our money. I think we've got some good minds in Macon County that we certainly need to explore, not being selfish, but what are our local, we've got a lot of discussion before we start committing appropriating funds.
Saying these projected wave two will come 2023 through 2036.
Chairman, I'd like to make the motion as presented by Manager Rowland. If you'd like me to read it, I can.
We got it.
Okay.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Eric and Derek. All right. Sale of surplus property. Derek, Maury, Derek.
Right, so we agreed to put up for sale the lot in Wildflower. There was surplus property that somebody wanted to purchase. They made the offer of $5,000. We did publish that bid for upset in the newspaper. We didn't get any other takers interested in doing so. So it's now on the table to accept the transaction and sign the settlement statement and the deed to Anakista Properties LLC, who was the last and highest bidder in the amount of $5,000. They did deposit their bid deposit, and they've likewise already tendered the remainder of the funds that they need to pay. We did make that contingent upon them being responsible for any HOA dues. We only held this property from October 2022. So we didn't hold it long. That's one of those where the tax appraised value was higher than what we sold it for, but it was put out there, and this puts it back into the county tax roll, so somebody's paying taxes on it based upon the appraised value moving forward. So basically, we'll go ahead and need the motion to sign the deed and the settlement statement, accept the funds to make that transfer.
Heard the proposition, gentlemen. Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion that we follow through with the sale of this property.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion?
Chairman, I do understand we're selling property less than tax assessed value, but I'm excited to get to stimulate our local economy, let somebody, build a home, obviously increase taxable revenue on that property. And I think it's in the best interest for us not to hold property with the HOA fee. I support this motion by Commissioner Sherrill.
Further discussion? Well, motion is second. All in favor, please signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Eric. G, Bitcoin.
There he is. So, we've had, I think everybody's been bombarded with some emails. There was a little stint on Fox News where some of the noise was recorded. Somewhere they'd had a Bitcoin mine, and the noise was evidently unbearable. And I think it would be wise for this body to maybe charge the planning board with looking into maybe what other counties and other municipalities are doing as far as restricting or permitting these Bitcoin mines. So, Chairman, I know we have some appointments to make tonight on the planning board. I think this would be a good time maybe to set that up. Maybe Joe can help us set a time that this board has the pleasure to charge the planning board. I'd be happy to bring it up for discussion.
Wasn't that place in Murphy?
Place.
There's two in Murphy.
So that there currently are two in Murphy. I don't know if that was what was on the news. Maybe it was, but yes, Cherokee. And from what I understand, these Bitcoin mines, they're targeting towns with very low tax rates, very low ad valorem rates. And so we happen to be the bottom, I think we're third in the state. So I could see our county being a target,
What
So-
kind of noise are you talking about? Drilling noise?
I mean, I understand it to be more like a humming, kind of like a sawmill, like real loud. Real loud.
Know a little bit about it. It's fan noise. The mining is very CPU, GPU insensitive. The computer processor units, the graphic processing units use it. Generates a lot of heat, so you generally have either lots of fans to cool it, or you'll have an external fan, and I think that's what you're seeing is you'll have multiple large HVAC units pumping a lot of air to try to move that heat out. Otherwise, the units would burn up and basically become worthless. So,
You willing to do that, Joe?
That's it. That's the Cherokee side up in there.
I can't hear you.
But I'm 300 foot away from it. That's what it sounds like.
Planning board willing to accept this? All right, is that in the form of a motion, Josh?
Yes, sir.
So a motion?
Second.
Second, to ask the planning board to bring this board within a reasonable period of time some suggestions on addressing Bitcoin mining. Have a motion second, all in favor, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Joe, and we're gonna get around to you in a minute. Consent agenda. Hope y'all will have a chance to review it. Are there any items in there that raise concern with any member?
No, sir.
And we can do the consent agenda all at once, don't have to have a whole column there. We'll entertain a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Shields.
Second.
A motion second. Discussion. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Appointments, planning board. And this is our, Commissioner Young is our planning board liaison to the planning board.
All right, Joe, have you got our, I wish you could see my papers. I've got these things scattered out, but,
Once you lose control
I'm
of it, there
telling
ain't
you.
no getting it back.
The problem is they print front and back.
Yeah.
And so when you start flipping over, you lose it, but anyways.
I don't have them. You can do, I know who they are, but I don't have
I
it
could-
paperwork.
I can pull it up on my phone and go give me.
You got it. I know who they are. I can tell you off the top of my head, but I don't have the paper in front of me. We've,
Here you go.
For the planning board?
Two of them.
Names on the plan.
There you go, that's what I'm looking for. So, I just wanted to make a notion that we've had 5 applicants apply to be a part of the planning board, and, that's strong. It's a volunteer board that meet, was it 5 o'clock, Joe?
Yep.
4:30, 5 o'clock, I mean, you have to take off of work early to make the meeting, so I do think it's a great thing, and I love seeing the interest. Right now, we've got a very diverse group, from all walks of life, all parts of the county. And I would intend to keep it that way. We have some interest from a gentleman that's very qualified by the name of Mr. Lee Walters from Nantahala. I think that's a nice little touch to have some representation from Nantahala. And we also had some strong discussion with the board with another local engineer / architect that we think could bring some well-needed conversation to that board. So after much discussion, Mr. Larry Lackey and Lee Walters would be the 2 names I'd like to recommend to this board to approve for the planning board.
Pleasure of the board.
Is that your motion, John?
Yes, sir.
Second.
A motion is second. Any discussion? And we rely heavily on the liaisons. That's one of the key roles of liaison appointments. So thank you for that, Josh. All in favor of the recommendation, signify by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Economic Development Commission. 2 seats, EDC, and Tommy left, didn't he?
Yeah, Tommy left.
Somebody want to enlighten us on that a little bit? Derek, you got anything on that?
I think both of these are applications for reappointment to the Economic Development Commission. You have Brett Rogers and David Hubbs.
You received an application from Ms. Rogers, but no other.
Yes, sir, we did get an application from Mr. Rogers. We have not received one from Mr. Hubbs, to my knowledge.
Do we need that application to complete the process?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to table that till next month?
Sure.
Recommendation to table this, do you need that in the form of a motion or anything?
So moved, Chairman.
Second, all in favor? Aye. That is the EDC, tabled until the March meeting. Southwestern Commission Area Agency on Agency on Aging Regional Advisory Council, 3 seats and 3 alternatives, that's a mouthful. Can anybody enlighten the board and the public on that?
Yes, as you can see here, we have an email in your packet from Patrick Betancourt, Director of Social Services. It says, please see message below from our AAA office, working with Jennifer and our community partners. We would offer the following slate of appointments for the commissioners to consider. Right here, the Southwestern Commission Area Agency on Aging works with all of you in several different ways. This is an email to the regional partners, one of which is the Regional Advisory Council, which consists of community members that the county commissioners appoint to assist the Area Agency on Aging with furthering our mission of developing and coordinating community-based systems of services for all older adults who reside within our region. Several of our members' terms have expired, and we need your assistance in resetting our volunteer base to assure that the needs of older adults are met. Ideally, we'd like to have 3 members and 3 alternates from each county. The appointments here suggested are Jennifer Hollifield, Senior Services, with the alternate Patrick Betancourt from Social Services. Appointment number 2, the primary would be Felicia Roberts with MPP. The alternate would be Chara Miller with MPP. And appointment 3, Joey Gibson with our community paramedicine. And the alternate for that appointment is Kim Terrell with the North Carolina Cooperative Extension.
Thank you, Derek. Pleasure of the board.
Make a motion we approve as presented. Manager Rowland.
Have a motion? Second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please signify by raising your right hand if in agreement. Thank you, gentlemen. Almost got mine out of order there. All right, big one here that we talked about earlier. We appoint 5 seats to the 2023 Board of Equalization and Review. And I think,
You have a recommendation in your agenda packet from Abby Braswell, the tax administrator. The names for the Board of Equalization and Review will be Dwight Vinson, Gary Drake, Christine Flagg, Donald Holland, and Richard Leitner.
and they got a lot of hours of work ahead of them.
Yes, they do.
It's not always pleasant.
No.
Nobody's coming in and wanting to get anything away, and there's a process of, appreciate these people being willing to serve. Pleasure of the board.
I feel like that group is more than qualified, and I make a motion we approve the 5 members as presented.
I'll second that. Any discussion, gentlemen? All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, and give our regards to the board, please.
Thank you.
And thank you for being here tonight, and we just gotta let people know what's going on. And this revow is big, so thank you for casually walking in and getting nailed. No,
It's okay.
thank you.
Good job, Abby, as always.
Absolutely. ETJ representative on the Town of Franklin Planning Board, 1 seat. We have a recommendation from Justin Setzer, the Town of Franklin Land Use Administrator, is requesting that we reappoint Dave Jones to the Town of Franklin Planning Board, and this is just a formality. What is the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to reappoint Mr. Jones.
Second.
So a motion and second, discussion. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand. And that brings us down to the end of our general business. Again, we thank each of y'all for being here. Is there a need for a closed session?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need these people to hang around?
No, we don't anticipate any action.
That means no action. So if we were taking action, we would have to come back out and reveal that to you, but if we don't expect any action, we don't anticipate it, it's good to see our newly retired Karen Wallace, Mrs. Karen Wallace, the past FRL and Macon County Library Director. And thank you for being here today, Karen. Thank you for, how many years did you serve?
30.
30? Wow. That's a long time. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. Motion to go into closed session.
Pursuant to 143-318.11, subparagraph 3, to consult with the county attorney.
Thank you, sir.
So moved, Chairman.